Today, director Olga Lvoff is joining me to discuss her film, Busy Inside. Welcome, Olga. Nice to see you again.
Thank you so much. My pleasure, Andrew.
My first question for you was if any of your characters saw the film once it was completed.
All the characters saw the film. Also, it was the a requirement from them to see the film before we release it because it's very sensitive, concerns very sensitive subjects, and it was hard for me as a filmmaker to agree, but I had to. I thought there was ethically no other way to release it because we're talking about people with real, very difficult psychiatric diagnoses, and I didn't want to, take just as a human being, take a risk of being responsible for anything that could trigger them when the film is released. So, yeah, so they had to see the film.
Did they see it together,
No,
individually?
different circumstances. Yeah.
Anyone have a particularly negative response?
As you can expect, no, because we released it with no
Right.
change. But it was hard for them, and it is every time still hard for them to watch it. We brought the main characters, Karen and Marche, on major screenings, both in Russia when we premiered one of the films in Russia in 2019. And here in the US premiere, we brought Marche, so they also were able to share it with the audiences, answer questions. So they're very much involved, and they also gave interviews. But I know it's hard for them to watch it every time.
You spoke a moment ago about your sense of ethical duties. Do you have any advice for filmmakers who may be contemplating undertaking a work with people suffering from mental illness?
It's so hard to say. I think it's very case by case situation. I'm very fortunate. I have a mentor with whom I talk every time I make a film, as Michel Negroponte. He is a famous filmmaker, and he has been doing films about mental health for during his whole life for many, many years. So before taking this decision, I talked to him, and he helped me realize what kind of consequences, like really devastating consequences, we could face. He said, "What if someone commits suicide? If you release it and it affects them, how it's how am I going to live for the rest of my life, knowing
Right.
that the risk is immediately becomes clearer and bigger than not releasing the film even." So I think my advice and what helped me is to talk to people with more experience, and to talk to people you trust and think about it.
So it sounds like the biggest obstacle you faced as a filmmaker was the notion that your participants would need to sign off on the final film.
Yeah.
You weren't going to take comments from them. It was either it was a thumbs up or thumbs down, that if they didn't approve of what they saw, then you just would never have released the film.
Yes. Yeah. And I just consciously took this risk.
So what about the process of filming? What's inevitably a confidential relationship between a doctor and a patient or a lawyer and a client. Do you have any recommendations for other filmmakers about how best to undertake filming in such a confidential setting?
So in our case, Karen, who is the main character in the film and the therapist, she asked her patients who wants to be filmed, and only those who said yes were filmed. Um, Not many people would even ask their patients. It took me a lot of research before I set to film Karen. A lot of people were discouraging me. They would say, you will never get access to this, to the therapy sessions. So I just kept researching. Um, So the recommendation here, I don't know, in my case, but it's a little bit subjective maybe, but I think it works. If you have a fire, like a real fire for doing something, like you cannot not do it. Like
Right.
Leo Tolstoy would say, don't write if you can not write. Then it'll work one way or the other. I face this over and over again, in my work and life. If there's something, I'm very driven. If there's something that I can't take out of my head, it's gonna happen one way or the other. I believe.
So I mean, if you've decided to make it, you're going to press forward and figure
Somehow.
out the obstacles as they
Yeah.
arise.
Mhm.
I have a question for you about releases, specifically given the characters in this film, where in some of the cases there are many identities inhabiting an individual person. What did you do about getting releases for each of the individual identities? Was that something you were concerned about? Like in the case of Karen, she has many various personalities who we see.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I had lawyers who were helping me, and at some point there, when we were selling the film to PBS, the PBS requested the document which would state from the lawyers and from the therapist, independent therapist, not related to the story. The document had to state that their children personalities in each character were not separate entities and did not need a legal permission from their caretakers to sign off for them. And they were part of the same entity. So the lawyers who were helping me, they say, that they saved this document for their just because it was the most unusual and strange document in their one of the most in their career.
And just in terms of maintaining a balance between authenticity and integrity and having an appropriate amount of sensitivity for your characters, I mean, that's always a concern, but I would imagine that's heightened when working with characters who are suffering from mental illness.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many stories about this. First, we even had logistical huge problem because some of the characters wouldn't like never met me, some of their identities. And
Right.
for example, we would come to the city for say 2 weeks and we would schedule like a meeting with someone. But I scheduled it with one personality, the other one had never heard about this and never
Right.
met me. So in these cases, I developed a strategy. I would give every time I saw the person, I would give them many cards, reminders, about things that we were gonna do. So hoping that maybe other personalities would see it and like would pass it to each other. And
Right.
sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes we would just follow them around the city, like driving with Victor, the producer, and seeing where they could be. And in terms of presence with different personalities, that was also interesting because, yes, it actually required sometimes different characteristics. And for example, we had a very, very good, very talented cinematographer, Justin Irvin. I shot 50% of it, and he shot about 50. So he was with us a lot, and he's very easygoing, very fun. And with him, more often, some of the children would come out
Oh, what?
more often than with us, than with
And
me.
you have a theory as to why?
Because of his character, like he was more childlike, he was more playful. He was also English was his first language, maybe, and not the first language for us. So he was like just playing around, and they would react to this.
That is wild. So,
Yeah,
what are you working on now?
I'm working on a play actually. I'm working like on a few short films with clients. But as an independent project, I'm working on a theater piece as a director. It's going to be my second play as a theater director.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
Well,
my
please
first
send me an
one.
email when it's. Are you trying it out of town first and then coming back to New York?
We'll see how it goes with this one, but the one we did in the fall, we did it at La Mama right away. For the round at La Mama, it was fantastic. It's a whole different story, but we rehearsed for 6 months prior to
Oh,
the release, for a long
wow.
time. Because, I am originally from Russia, and Russian theatrical school is very different an approach. And their rehearsal period is usually much longer, and I took this as an approach.
Interesting. Well,
Mhm.
thank you very much for your time. It's
Thank you,
been a
Ben.
pleasure. I
Bye.
think this will encourage more people to watch Busy Inside, which will be meaningful for them and all of us, I think. So
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. Thank you, Andrew.